So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein, as always. I'm so happy to be here with you. You are really going to love today's episode and guest because she's talking about something that affects each and every one of us, and that is money and the soul and emotion and psychology of money. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, but then she'll tell you even more. And my guest is Julie Murphy. Now, if her name sounds familiar, it's because she's got 4 books out. Is that right? Or are there more since?
3, and I'm writing the 4th one.
Okay. So she's an expert on finances and much more. So Julie, you're the author of Awaken Your Wealth, The Emotion Behind Money, the 4 spiritual laws of money, all important.
And my next one's going to be about the fear that we all have with money.
Thank God. Thank God. You're also a podcast host of a really great podcast, Wake Up to Your Wealth. You are a certified financial planner. You've managed over $250 million in assets, and you've created, I'm going to say, financial abundance for yourself. But you did not start out that way.
Oh, no.
So we're going to get into that because I always feel like the story has much more impact if somebody's actually walked the walk,
Lived
and
it.
you have done it. But basically, something I really love when I was reading about what I was reading about you, and I've seen some of your other interviews, you really talk about how people can have a lot of wealth and still feel a sense of lack or burnout or just stuckness. They don't experience the freedom they imagine it will bring them. Or we have all of this stuff we all drag around with us, and that can get in the way of us achieving the wealth and abundance we would like. So we're going to get into all of that, but without further ado, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. Again, I said before we started, you're one of those people that just from watching your interviews, I felt like, oh, I know you.
Thank you.
You're so relatable. And I love that because money is such a really difficult issue to talk about. So tell us a little bit more about what brought you to this and what you really want people to know.
Sure. Well, I have 11 brothers and sisters. And so I think that's one of the reasons there was a lot of personalities going on in my house growing up. And so you just learn to adapt to situations and figure it out. And again, I didn't come from money, but I learned to not only become what I call income affluent, because that's one kind of wealth, but then it's a whole other different package to become asset affluent. A lot of us have learned how to generate income to provide lifestyles better than the generations prior, but so many of us don't know how to hold it in abundance. And that's been my journey, is not only starting my own business at 22 years old, which I cannot believe that I just hit 30 years last month.
Congratulations.
I'm going, I'm not that old. And but it's about not only teaching what I knew from my insides and what my gifts are, and not necessarily even what my industry was telling me that I needed to teach. That I like to call it letting my own personal freak flag fly, be what I have been made to be despite a white male dominated industry. And there was, out of 1,000 women, there was maybe 2 of us in the crowd when I first started in the career. The good news is now it's up to about 12%.
Wow.
And it's growing, but money hits us all, whether you're male or female, whether you're masculine or feminine in nature. We all have this basis that we inherited from the households we grew up in, the communities we grew up in, and these belief systems that is actually hardwired into the cells of our body. And if we can't accept or recognize that and not bring it with the shame and the blame and the guilt and the judgment that we have around it, we won't ever get out of that patterning, even if you desire, because we have to look at what it is and then start to make conscious choices around that. And that's why the subtitle of my first book is Building Your Wealth from the Inside Out. Because oftentimes we do it because, well, it's a good job and it pays a lot and it provides for my family and that I did what I was supposed to do, but yet you're not happy. And we, for some reason, feel like if we do something that makes us happy and it's soul driven, that we can't get a great paycheck at the same time. And that couldn't be further than the truth. It's just a belief system hardwired into many of us.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like there's so many really uncomfortable beliefs that we're all kind of indoctrinated with about money. And it's not that people aren't well-intentioned in trying to help
Mm-hmm.
us, you know, be appropriately respectful of,
Right.
but so much of it is fear-driven, so much of it kind of taints our self-esteem. I feel like money and comparative wealth or the tendency to compare ourselves to other people really elicits so much of our insecurities. So
Mm-hmm.
that like you were I know you said before, like, even if you get there, wherever there is for you, you can
Right.
feel very insecure.
Right. Well, and there's 5 ways that human beings respond to stress in that anxiety state. So we either try to control our environment, like there's many couples where one of them tries to control things financially. Then there's disassociation where you want to run from it all, right? And we can also try to entrain others to do it our way. We might try to be a people pleaser, or we might try to fix it. And so, if we can start to recognize going, oh, I'm people pleasing, I'm fixing it, I'm trying to control it, I'm disassociating, going, now you know you're in your patterning. Now you're in your stuff. And the question is what do you then want to do about it? Because recognizing it is half of it. So you kind of go, oh, yeah, when I first started my business, I tried to control everything. And then I realized going, oh, I'm from Chicago. And I moved my office across the street from Harpo Studio, so
Oh,
Oprah's
wow.
studio back in the day. And I'm going, well, I know I'm supposed to do big things in the world, and she did too, so let me be in her energetic space. And so I'm going, oh, well, Oprah can't control everything inside of her organization or it wouldn't have grown. And that's why women actually, most women business owners don't go past $1 million in revenue. The majority of women business owners, and I believe it's because of that control piece, because we're trying to control our anxiety and we're trying to keep things manageable. And so you have to start to trust and you have to start to let go and trust other people to do jobs. And that was the only point, like when my business then became more than $1 million generating revenue business. And we don't realize when we're all in our stress response how much that actually impacts the outcome and the creation that we've created.
I think there's so much to what you have talked about and what you've begun talking about today. In my mind, one question I have is, would it be fair to I know it's kind of artificial, but divide the world into people who don't have a problem making money, but have a problem feeling safe with it, and
Mm-hmm.
people who feel for one reason or another like they just can't make it or they can't get above their bills?
Correct. Right. So that's the income affluence and the asset affluent pieces. And that's exactly what you had just said. And so if attracting the income and generating the income, it's usually a not enough button or a not a deserving button, that we don't feel like we're worthy of it. And so it's about retraining your emotional infrastructure to saying, I am deserving. Like sometimes I'll give the assignment to clients, like every day I want you to look in the mirror and watch your eyes, because your eyes typically can't stay looking in the mirror when you say, I am worthy, I am deserving. Because those are really strong, powerful words. And the entire world works on sound and vibration. I learned that when I did my work with Deepak Chopra through the years. And when you realize that the entire world works on sound and vibration, your words are super powerful because that's a vibration that's going out. So if you're saying, oh, I can't do this. Oh, money just doesn't come to me. Oh, I just can't get out of debt. Well, yes, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's the vibration you're putting out. So you have to, it's like that whole thing, like fake it till you make it, right? Well, say the words before you really truly believe that you're deserving. Start to convince the cells in your body and your brain that I am deserving. I am deserving. And even the safety piece. I oftentimes, when I'm holding a seminar, I'll have people in the crowd close their eyes and just say over and over again to themselves, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And it is only a matter of a couple minutes before everyone in the room will feel in their body where they have physically stored in their body not feeling safe. And it's just where they've stored those emotions, where something happened before 7 years old, where us humans all have a trauma or rejection that gets stored in our subconscious mind back here in our amygdala, where we no longer feel safe. And then we apply it to our relationships, our money, or our health. And so then when people recognize going, oh, there's where it's stored in my body, then it's about just opening up to say, okay, I'm ready to feel those feelings. The grown up in me is ready to feel what's stuck. And I'll tell you, you have no clue what it is. And a lot of times you're going, okay, what? You're my financial planner. Why are you telling me to say these things that I am safe? And I'm going, well, it's that safety piece or worthy piece or deserving piece that is what's making your money patterns repeat over and over and over again.
Are there certain things that you have seen, certain patterns where people self-talk, like, typical things people have learned or told themselves consciously or unconsciously over the years that makes it hard for them to either be or feel abundant?
Yeah, well, it always comes from that event that happens in their childhood. So I will actually have people tell me, it's like, tell me what money talk was like in your house growing up. And they'll be like, huh? And then if you have a couple in front of you, you say, they're usually very different experiences. And now you have your money problems as a couple, right? Because you're both coming from a whole different background, right? And so it's about how these patterns. So a lot of times, I talk about personalities and money. So you might be someone that the minute money comes into your pocket, it burns a hole and like you can't hold on to it. So like an assignment I'll give somebody like that, I'm like, I want you to go to the bank and I want you to get $100 bill. And some people are like, I don't have $100. And I'm like, okay, we'll get a $20 bill. But $100 bill is something enough that people usually pause a little bit to not spend, right? Well, it's only a matter of days. I tell people, Benjamin Franklin is going to talk to you. You need to spend me. You need this. You need that. And what is happening in that process is those emotions that you have stuck in your body are starting to come to the surface. Because you're trying to distract yourself. Whether you're a spender or a hoarder or carefree about things, no matter what personality type you are with money, you have distracted yourself with your spending or your hoarding or whatever story you've got. And when you stick that $100 bill in your wallet and you don't spend it under any circumstances, you're no longer distracting yourself and you're allowing those emotions to come to the surface. And I always tell people, under no circumstances spend that. Usually people do within a couple weeks. And then I say, you fell off the horse. Who cares? Go get another 100. Because what you're doing is you're now building the muscle of abundance. Because you're learning. And then if you've mastered the 100, now stick 200 in there. Now stick 300. I actually had one assignment one day. This woman was like, I just can't stop spending. So we actually looked on Amazon and we found her pajamas. They were in dollar bills. I'm like, you need to just surround yourself with money and abundance. And people are like, what? And I go, it works. It works. And then some people have like taped it to their computer. It's just about being okay being around money and not wanting to spend it. Because typically people, if they have a challenge with the spending part, they also have a problem with keeping their debt under control. Because that's also another way where the system controls people. And they don't realize that that's where they're losing their financial empowerment.
Talk about that, the system controlling people or making it hard for them to get ahead.
Back on Jekyll Island, back in the 1920s, when the wealthiest met and they created the Federal Reserve for the United States, well, that's when they created the debt system. And the debt system is completely set up to control the masses and how they want you to financially behave. And it has mastered controlling people. So debt, what it does is you lose your freedom. And because you have to wake up every day to pay those bills. And then you've got high interest rates. Now people will argue with me going, well, my mortgage debt is good debt. And I locked it in at 2.35% a few years ago and rates are low. I go, okay, yes, that is true. But most people who carry the majority of the debt, it's not good debt. It's debt that's keeping you trapped in a job that you don't like, but you need the salary.
Credit card debt.
And credit cards, student loans, car loans, you name it. right? Loans on your 401k. And people are like, well, I took the loan on my 401k because I had an emergency. Well, this is why you divide your money into three buckets: short term, mid-term, and long term. Long term is your 401k. Most people wouldn't keep money. If you think about the 10 years that we had low interest rates, people would justify themselves saying, well, why would I put my money there? Because it doesn't make much interest. Well, it depends. What is the purpose of that money? Is the purpose to like protect you if you lost your job for a few months? Or is it about making a high rate of return? Ideally, we'd love both. But you have to have intention and goals for what your money is doing for you. You know, I often have people sign up these accounts called online savings accounts that you can name them, because when people name their financial intention, they usually stick to it. But I noticed early on when I first started having people set up these emergency reserves because they were taking 401k loans for their emergencies and not having cash in the bank, or using their credit card lines instead of the bank. And I was like, one person named it Muffy after her cat. That's what she named it. Well, she used that money all the time. So I eventually had her rename it to I Lost My Job Fund. So unless you lost your job,
Wow.
don't use it. So it's about bringing the awareness while you're in your subconscious mind and doing patterning that you're not even aware of yet. It's bringing it to the surface, bring it to the awareness, because we're trying to plant the seeds for the life that you want to create financially, as opposed to the ones that you've been doing.
As you're talking, I don't know if you can see my thought balloons. I know you've
Yeah,
worked
I can.
with Deepak Chopra, so I mean, I'm sure I can put some things out there that are a little bit off the beaten path or a little bit on the esoteric end of the spectrum. But I was thinking before, because I knew we were speaking today about the tarot, which I'm not an expert at. I haven't done it in a long time. I used to do it more. But the pentacles, the suit of pentacles, as like I was taught to think of it as the manifestation of spiritual abundance, but in the physical world. So wealth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
security, things that you
Mm-hmm.
own. And it- the reason I'm bringing that up is because you were speaking about what you name your accounts, right? And you know, if it was the cat's name is Muffy, if it was the
Yeah.
Muffy Medical Fund, I think it would be harder to touch because we're making
Right.
something concrete. If it's just
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, I love this account, like I love that,
Right. I really love it, and I wanted this thing when I was
it's
shopping.
maybe not concrete enough. And even
Mm.
when you're talking about carrying around $100 bill or whatever somebody can carry around, I find that it's harder for most people to spend the money that's in their hand because it's very easy to see that when it's gone, it's gone. And there's something
Well,
that
then you're
feels
processing reality.
right. Whereas it's so intangible
Mm.
when it's just, clicking a PayPal
Right.
button or something
Yep.
like that, or buy now,
Yep.
pay later, or
It completely is different if you're sliding a credit card. Let's say you're buying a couch. Well, will you pay $1,000 for that couch, or will you hand over 10 $100 bills? Most people would not hand over 10 $100 bills. But you'll slide that card all day long.
no, you,
All day long.
you throw
It
a
doesn't
blanket.
land it doesn't land in your system somehow.
No, you throw a blanket on the old couch for a little bit longer.
That's exactly it. Well, you make choices that are in alignment not with satisfying your current emotions of what you're distracting yourself from feeling that is stuck in your system from before age 7, versus going, is this going to create the world that I really want to create in the future? Yes or no? It's like run it through your filter. But most of us are on autopilot. Think of it like your paycheck. I have people set up their financial plans just like your paycheck being automatically deposited into your checking account. Because when everything's on autopilot, if I don't set up the system for you to create the world you want on that same automatic system, you'll negotiate yourself away all day long. So we have to put it on the same structure and where how life is happening. When people say, "Okay, well, I'll manually send it to that account every month," I'm like, "No, you won't." No human does, because life happens, life comes up, and you'll have every reason in the world why not to do it. It'll be completely justified. But if it automatically goes, you're positioning yourself to be lucky to actually create more of the life that you want.
So that seems to me what you're saying to be getting to how we use money to distract ourselves from pain or
Hmm.
boredom or feelings of low self-worth or create a feeling of greater self-worth, escape from and it's not wrong to buy things or use money to do things, that's not what I'm
Correct.
saying. But when it comes to paying down debt, which is
Hmm.
unsexy and not an instant gratification thing other than the relief I'm paying down my debt, if it's not I think it sounds like what you're saying is if it's not automated, it's just easy for people to avoid the
Yep.
unpleasant or the just not pleasant enough feeling.
Well, it's just about feeling the reality that you've created thus far, right? Because in that, it's the second step of the process that I work in my Awaken Your Wealth book. It's the accept the reality that you've created, because then you've created emotional space for a different reality. But if we don't have that acceptance, like if you're not opening those envelopes, or a lot of times people today will just get the electronic emails for all their debt and they don't even ever look at the emails. They have a different email address that it all goes to that they never even open. Well, that is not allowing you to actually feel the feelings of the reality that you've created. And that's the distraction piece. And so when we start to decide, going, you know what, I want to live a life from empowerment. And I'm talking, I know people who make $500,000 a year and they have more zeros maybe, but they have more zeros on their debt as well. Because you've never met anybody who is unhappy the day that they pay off their student loans. No one is unhappy the day they pay off their car. Never. They're ecstatic. And so if you get that great of a feeling from paying it off, why recreate that struggle again? And people go, well, how do I do it? So let's use a car as an example. You pay off your car. And I tell people, okay, well, you had $450 a month going automatically to that Toyota, let's say. Now I want, what's the next car you want? Well, I want a Lexus next. I don't want a Toyota again. I want a Lexus, right? Okay. Well, then we name that savings account Lexus New Car Fund. And you make that payment of that $450 a month to that until the point where you decide to buy a new car. Now, what always happens is that you get to that place, you're going, well, I want a new car, but I've only been putting the money in there for 3 years and I don't have enough for a Lexus. I'm like, okay, so you have a choice. You can either now take this money, so now your payment for that car is less than the 450, right? Or you can buy a car with the amount of money they have. Most people choose to have a lower payment, because they still want the better car. But I'll tell you, I had this one client, she had accumulated like 18,000 and she had a Toyota Camry that had something like 250,000 miles on it.
Oh,
Like
wow.
she just was like, I ran to the ground. But she was a lawyer and she's like, Joel, I look like a ridiculous person showing up as a lawyer with this whole. She got a new Camry with 80,000 miles on it with all the cash that she had in the savings account. She goes,
Wow.
well, it's better than the one I gave up. And she actually just recently, she's been a client for about 15 years. She just recently, because she kept making that payment in there, she just actually bought a brand new car because she had enough cash then to buy a new car with cash.
Good for her.
So we have to allow ourselves to have a bridge, right? And neither way is wrong. Like, I don't care which one you choose. Let's just keep directionally get you to where you want to be. It's becoming your own bank. It's becoming playing financial offense versus financial defense. And debt puts you in a defense position. Like, you make different decisions when you have a lot of bills to pay every month. You make very different decisions the day that you can actually tell your boss to go jump in the lake because you have enough money to say goodbye. People don't put up with coworkers and bosses once you have that money amassed. You just don't.
I have to tell you a funny anecdote, and I'm gonna condense it. But my first job out of college was in advertising. I thought it would be very different than it was. Still grateful, it was a tough job market, glad to have had a job, but I hated every moment of it. 7 months felt like 70 years. And
Yeah.
I remember there were a whole bunch of things. I was asking the universe for signs, and I got a bunch of them, and they were pretty loud. But I was commuting in by train, and it was way back in the day, so I had a Sony Walkman in the radio. So I was hearing
Mm-hmm.
this in real time on the commuter train that somebody had won a lottery, a local person had won a lottery for $80,000. And even then, I remember thinking, $80,000. First of all, it was so much money I couldn't conceive of it. But I realized even then, it wouldn't be enough to not work ever again. But I asked myself the question, if I had $80,000, if I won that money, would I still be commuting into this job? And it was a very clear and unequivocal no.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
And and I hear what you're saying is that money can provide freedom. I'm gonna say if we can get out of our own way, create better patterns, understand why we have some of the negative patterns, and make different choices, but it really is hard. It's very hard to unlearn.
Mm-hmm.
This is another disclosure. I would say that I have relatively good emotion regulation skills at this point. I'm a psychologist. I spent a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time helping other
Mm-hmm.
people do that. Money is one of the things that I still experience more anxiety about than almost anything, and I have never been able to identify an amount that would completely wipe out that anxiety.
Right. Well, and I will tell you that people ask me, how do I help people regulate their emotions behind money? Since I wrote the book about it. And it usually has everything to do with how much money you keep in a savings account because it's not exposed to the stock market. It's FDIC insured and it's kind of like your foundation. Everybody has a different threshold. So the standard industry one would be 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in a savings account. But I have 2 risk questionnaires that I give every client. One measures your right brain and one measures your left brain. The whole industry only does left brain analysis. So what's financially efficient? The right brain is going to bring in the emotions.
Talk about that.
Usually those answers for people are completely opposite. So I'll have somebody who has ultra conservative right brain, but because they're in their late 30s and 40s, they're aggressive growth as far as their investments because they've been trained that you should be in all stocks because that's better for inflation over time because they're, that's where they can make the most money. But then you have a stock market that comes back. And then you have a recession and you have these things and people are spinning out. And I would get these phone calls of people just going, did an alien just take over your body? Because this is not the person I've regularly talked to. And it's just like, oh my God.
Like
Like it was
in a
coming out
panic.
of nowhere. Yeah. Like, and not nice. Like, wow. Like I thought I had that nailed. This is early on in my career. And that's why I started doing the right and the left brain going, oh. And so it's about, think of it like a pyramid. And so that first base is your pyramid. And if I know somebody's ultra conservative on the right side, I'm going, well, let me guess that you're probably like 6+ months in a savings account. And yes. And then I've got the spouse sitting there a lot of times that goes, that's ridiculous. We should never have that much in savings account because they don't have that tolerance. And I'm like, okay, because you have to find the blend between the husband and the wife or the couple, your partnership. And so I'm like, okay, but you have to honor both parties. And where does that come to? So then there's the next layer of the pyramid where I look at what's the next. Sometimes it's layering CDs. Sometimes it's then short-term bonds. And then might be midterm bonds. So depending, and everybody has a threshold. Everybody. And it's that balance between the right and left brain. And it's about making conscious choices and having awareness going, I still have anxiety if I have this. I still have anxiety. Let's talk about, like, not to go too far down the money path,
Yeah, of
but
course.
there's lots of news out there about annuities. Like, they're expensive. You're getting ripped off if you're being sold one. And
Explain what they are to the people
sure.
listening who aren't as financially literate as you are.
Absolutely. So an annuity is a retirement vehicle that is created by an insurance company. So a lot of the negative stuff is not many of us humans like insurance companies. So that's number one, right? Number two, I said, okay, can we take what you know about annuities out of the equation? It's a retirement vehicle, so you can't touch it until after 59 and a half unless you have penalties. And I want to just describe to you what a financial vehicle can do. And do you like that? Do you not like that? Does it trigger you? Does it not trigger you? Because I'm indifferent. To me, it's about giving you a menu and let's see what resonates. An annuity, in simple terms, creates a pension plan. It can. Not all of them, but it can. And so Does that feel more grounded if all of your expenses in retirement just deposit into your checking account every month, like a social security check,
Automatically.
right? Automatically. Like, where does that put you? So if I have somebody that's ultra conservative, but yet they've read all these
Financial.
things about annuities and they're afraid their fear and their anxiety is being triggered because they've read enough. And I go, well, let's just find an efficient one and let me tell you the cost. And do you care about that cost if it grounds you emotionally? And that answer could be yes or no, right? And some people it's worth the cost. I would say the majority of people it's not worth the cost. Who cares? If it grounds you more and you have a happier retirement because you've set it up in alignment with you and not everybody else, it's about honoring you in this entire process. Whether that's the savings accounts, the CDs. You know, I have an accountant who is a client of mine. She's the most conservative person I've ever met. And she said, Julie, I could care less that I'm making a rate of return. I'd rather keep my expenses low because I can't handle the anxieties of the stock market because I don't trust
Okay.
Wall Street. And that's not for me to judge. I go, okay, tell me more about that. I want to stay in curiosity about that. Like she doesn't like debt because she doesn't like to be on the hook. Well,
Okay.
she's well qualified to have a job that's making 200 grand a year with her education, but she's chose a job that makes $70,000 a year, less stress, but her expenses because she has no debt. She owns a home. She owns her mom's home because she paid cash for all of them. She has no debt, and her expenses are about $2,000 a month. So who cares for the high pressure job? And she's calm, she's neutral, and she's stayed off anti-anxiety drugs. Right? Like, but that's what she wants. But somebody in my industry would sit there and go, are you nuts? You have all this money and you have it in all this conservative stuff. You can make so much more return. But the question is that the objective? What's the objective here? And so I challenge people going, what do you want? What's your objective? And some people it's rate of return, and I don't care what I invest in the world. Like, I just want positive return. Some people it's like, I don't want to do anything that's bad for the environment. I don't want to support companies' stocks that are with war or hurting humans, you know, Monsanto with food. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. Question is run it through your filter. Because money is energy. And you want to energize the things that are within alignment of your belief system. And when people go, well, yeah, I want to do that, but people don't know how to do that. And I'm going, well, you start by going, well, what's important to you? Because you don't have to take these things, just invest in everything for just rate of return. And is that important to you or not important to you?
I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is, and help me if I get this wrong or leave something out, but that once people can get out of their fear and some of their indoctrination around money, some of the myths around
Mm-hmm.
money, some of their fears around money, and some of their maybe reactive kind of habits with money, where they either hoard it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not great, or where they overspend it. Once they find out, okay, what is it I really want, align with their values, and then and make a clear plan that they can stick to, that in and of itself should alleviate a lot of the anxiety and self-worth issues because then they're working
Right.
towards something that feels like a fit for them.
Yep.
And I'm going to go a step further and say it sounds like what you're saying is abundance really is so much more than dollar signs. Not that it can't
Oh,
be,
yeah.
but that kind of plan and security and thoughtfulness can help people to feel abundant regardless of whether, again, they have, 5 figures, 6 figures,
Yep.
7-figure income or whatever.
Yep.
Because there's something that you said in one of your other talks, and it made me think about this. This is to me, this is very, it's something you can't miss. We have people on this planet now, I think more billionaires than ever,
Mm-hmm.
and the billionaires have more billions than they've ever had. I think that triggers a lot of emotion in the general public,
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
because it's either the feeling of these are the robber barons of our era. By the way, my disclaimer is my point isn't to make a point about that so much as I mean, because that'd be a whole other podcast episode, but it's it's interesting how it triggers all of our own stuff. Like money is
Yes.
the root of all evil, or they have, as my husband's parents would say, they can't be happy,
Right.
which sets you up for weird money beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying before, like money burning a hole in your pocket. That's something my mother would say. By the way, she's a compulsive spender. My father's a very got a tight grip on the money, so it's not surprising that I can't find a place of ease,
Yep.
emotionally around it. Big digression. But but we see all of these people with extreme wealth who actually don't look like they have a sense of being settled internally
No, not an out.
or
I'll tell you why.
with good self-esteem or any of that. I mean, it's amazing to me how publicly people are acting out all of their money stuff.
Correct. So they may have the money piece, because I always say we work it out or we act it out. We do it through our money, our health, or our relationships. So a lot of times you'll see somebody with the power and the money and going, oh, now you just found out about all the affairs they're having on their spouse. Like that's where it's act. And all of that is just unprocessed emotions that they are distracting themselves from feeling from before age 7 that are stuck in their system. And it's coming out through their money or their health or their relationships. And I want to make the point that in my books, I talk about people in different economic categories: the poor, debtors, dreamers, accumulators, and then rich but empty. Anyone who is not rich but empty, like you couldn't quit your job today because you don't have enough money amassed, they think once they get there,
They'll be full.
then they're happy and they're abundant. No, that couldn't be further than the truth. There are a lot of people that have built their money up, but they've built it on the wrong foundation. They've built it on the foundation of that trauma or rejection, not on who they are authentically, and their soul, and the work they're meant to do in the world because of why they came here in the first place. Because you can be abundant all across the way, because oftentimes we forget to bring ourselves along for the ride. So we negotiate ourselves away in our marriages, in our jobs, because we don't want to lose the paycheck. We're doing it for the family. Like we're holding it together, but yet you're not showing up authentically. And there's parts of you that it's chipping away every day. And we know this because that's when we then have outbursts or we disassociate and we go into that stress response system. And so there's this embodiment of what I call real wealth. And that's when you align your life, your jobs, your relationships, everything around who you are authentically. Like not negotiating away any part of yourself. And so many of us don't even know where we are negotiating that self. So for example, I was married for 14 years and 4 children, building a life together. And then all of a sudden I'm like going, wait a minute. I married someone that I'm carrying. I don't have a partner. Like I'm dragging him along for the ride. Well, he used to tell everybody, I'm a kept man and I'm proud of it. Well, then I started having children and he's like, do you mind if I'm the at-home dad? I'm like, sure, because to me it was the option, hire somebody or you. Well, 3rd child, I had to hire a nanny because he wasn't doing the job effectively. Wound up with another one. And then I've got him in coffee shops 3 days a week and I'm paying all these bills for everybody and I'm going, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, could you please just go get a job? Nope. So my work was holding healthy boundaries. I had stopped along the way holding healthy boundaries for myself because I wanted to avoid the conflict, which is exactly a pattern of my mom. She just would duck and cover and avoid the conflict. And I'm going, okay, that's when I realized we work it out between our money, our health, our relations. My money world, just fine. Very abundant. And then as I started holding those boundaries, he didn't want to do his work along the way. Hence, we're no longer married. Funny thing is, post-divorce, he is. That was the experience he had to have so that he would step up. And that's okay because that was the journey. Like, no harm, no foul. I stepped into my empowerment and now he has as well. And so, but I had this storyline. Nobody in my family was ever divorced. Nobody in my family had ever like, and everyone's like, Julie got divorced? Like, she's got her act together. Like, what? And so I had to deal with all that, like, Julie wasn't perfect stuff that started to come up, right? And everybody's got their story of that, right? Whether it's the relationships or the money. Like, we all have our stuff. But I started to realize that I wasn't showing out authentically in the world. And then when I started to, it rocked the waters. And the question, and we don't all do it perfectly, right? But what I want to say to everyone watching that, if you're triggered about something, like I was triggered about my ex, you need to shift. It's not about the other person. You're triggered because something in you is trying to come up and heal. And if you can start to sometimes you just need to ask yourself the question, all right, what's this about? Okay, what is it? And in the moment you may not be able to, but maybe when you can step back, then be like, hey. And so like your mom and dad, when you're talking about their money scenario, right? I've had many men who control the money in their families, and the wives are mutes. Even when I'm in meetings and I'll ask the wife a question, he'll answer for her. And I go, can I have a moment to just actually see how she feels about it? And she would sit there and do this. And I go, tell me. Because I'm holding a container then that's safe for her to verbalize it. And you can tell she's ready to get corrected. You can tell. And so, well, how do you feel about that? You know, and starting to ask those questions, well, how do you feel about it? And then getting some kind of new agreement that it's okay for both voices to be heard. You know, I remember this one guy came, he goes, I came to you because you're a female and you have to get my wife to stop buying designer jeans because she buys 4 pairs per month and they're $600 a pop.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that is ridiculous. And I was like, okay, I need to stay in a state of neutrality. I'm going, tell me what the jeans do for you.
Good question. No, I mean, and it really important and helpful rather than just being like, you don't have the money to buy these jeans, or you do.
Right. And they had the cash flow to it, but it was not fitting the goals that he wanted. Because turns out he was in a job he hated. So he's like working in a job that he hates for her to, in his mind, piss away $2,400 a month on jeans. So we recreated a system where she then turned around and resold them when she didn't want them anymore on eBay. So we cut their budget down to a third of what it was because she was turning around and selling them then on eBay. So other people were getting a deal on these things that weren't very old because she was buying them so often. And she was able to still buy them. And what happens in that process, it wasn't about the jeans. It was about that she didn't want to not stand in her power against her husband. It was a power play. And so that was her way it was coming out. And eventually she's like, you know, I don't really want to do this anymore. And so it became less important to her because he started to honor her in the process and she started to stand in empowerment more in the process. Like we have these funny things we do as humans and they're usually not logical. Usually not.
No, and it's interesting, you know, I'm thinking about it too. The psychology of what you're saying is people acting out money issues
Mm-hmm.
in ways that on the surface and power issues that on the surface might not look like what they are. I mean,
Correct.
so you've talked about how deeply entangled money is with our relationships, our self-worth, our psychology. You mentioned in one of your other talks about money and weight. And I don't know if you
Mm.
knew Mona Lisa Schultz or know the name, but
Mm-mm.
she was a very well-known medical intuitive and author, but she
Mm.
talked about money and second and third chakra issues
Oh, yeah.
and weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, my ears perked up as soon as you mentioned that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because people on the surface would say, oh, those aren't connected, but they actually are.
Yeah. I mean, when people come into me and they're like, oh, my lower back's killing me, I'm going, oh, they're not in alignment with their money authentically. I know that second chakra, lower back, all money issues, all of it. And so I start going, so what do you think about like your current money situation? And something eventually in that conversation will happen. And then I know how to then help them restructure to build that foundation so that their lower back and their second chakra is not acting up. And a lot of times, you know, we have all of our family and our community and we grew up in stuff is in our first chakra. So oftentimes, if you're doing the work to change those belief systems in your first chakra, it's coming up to second chakra. It's like going, because your energy system is starting to open up so that you can have a clear channel to really follow your own intuition. And so when the lower back stuff comes on, oh, they cleared the first, more energy's going to the second for that stuff to push its way out, right? Because the whole journey is about you getting in alignment with self, so that you can open up to receive and to give and just be an open channel as to why you're here. And so your weight, a lot of times you'll see, second chakra, it puffs out. And a lot of times people think that it's fat. And I would argue that a lot of it, usually, especially if you expand and contract a lot, it's inflammation. It's cortisol running through your system. So a lot of times, if you're somebody who's distracting yourself by spending and debt levels and then a job you don't like, your cortisol levels are shooting through your system. Your hormones are all out of balance. And now your belly's going, and it's blowing up like a balloon. And when you start to see that correlation, be like, well, how do we shift you to a part of your life to reduce your level of cortisol? It's like, what's going
Stress
on?
hormone.
Right. Let's go to a place where what's creating the stress. And then, because usually people have an area of their life that is the most dominant, that's creating the most havoc, whether it's your work life, your family life, your personal life, financial life. And that's the one I typically start with, because I have to start to get you to regulate your physical body. So that, because the best investment you'll make is your health, right? And so I start to ask those questions like, because when you blow up, that's just protection. Protection from what? What do you feel like you need protection from? Where do you feel unsafe? And when I can start to find that, and people will always say like, well, they spend money. A lot of times people think it's outside of themselves, but it's usually inside of themselves. And we often as humans blame others for it. And it's like, well, and then as we start to build the infrastructure and we start allowing some of those things that are stuck in your system to come up, because going, well, it's not the savings account anymore because now we've built that 3 months in the savings account. How are you feeling about that? Where's your debt levels? And I want to tell you, every time I set up a system with somebody, you have to allow yourself the space to fall off the horse. Because humans do. We fall back into our old patterns. But we need to just be like, whoops, fell off the horse. Okay, let's go back to the system. And just be like, oh man, that stinks. As opposed to like punching yourself in the face for it. Like, I remember like even after my divorce, like I was like, I failed. And then I had to rewire and go, I didn't fail. I gave it my all. Like, I just wasn't the only one making the decisions. Right? And it's like, okay, well, maybe our gifts were exchanged and what we were supposed to give each other, and it's time to move on. Okay, all right, move on. Let's go. Best gift every day would show up with gratitude. One way you can get weight is start to have gratitude for even the most difficult situations in life. Like, I would send gratitude every morning for the 4 beautiful babies. And because I stepped way more in my empowerment, because the soul of my ex-husband played the role that he did. And most people are like, well, I'd kind of shoot him out in the back alley with everything they eat, because I spent over $1 million in legal fees because I was being attacked in the legal system because I was the moneymaker.
Wow.
And so then it leaked out, right? It affected the money, right? Because it's all entangled. And it was all just about me stepping into more of my empowerment. And I can see that now, 8 years later, going, oh, yeah, I can see it. He was a soul that played a role for me to evolve to the highest version of myself at that juncture. Great. And if I could see it from that place as opposed to like, oh my God. Because I could absolutely go that path. But I want to live my highest timeline in this lifetime and embody it all. I've always been that way. Like, why can't we have it all? The career, the family, everything. Like, and I've recreated that in my new relationship. Like, you just have to set the intention for what it is that you desire and then start planting the seeds. Because if we only focus on reality, we might get too depressed to be like, it's not worth it. Like, I dug myself a hole. I give up. Or you could just say, you know what? That's why the first step in my process in my book, Awaken Your Wealth, talks about picture the life that you want to create, no matter what you've got behind you, because that is your light. that is your glimmer of hope that something can be different. And I don't even care. People might be watching this saying, but I don't even have the money to be able to do that. You know what? You have $5 a month that you can put into some account that says, my new life fund. And you may not even know what that is, but you're choosing to shift your energy to create a new reality. And just with that possibility, it's like an egg. That's why there's an egg on the cover. It's to crack you, start to open to get more in alignment with self.
I love
Because
that.
that is what creates abundance.
Julie, I want to be mindful of your time, but talk about your 5 steps that are in
Mm-hmm.
your book because I think it's so important. Everything you've said resonated, and I could easily pick your brain for another hour, but I want to be respectful that you're a very in-demand woman. Your 5 steps.
Yeah, so it's a 4-step process.
Oh,
It's a
sorry,
packed
4. Okay,
process. No worries. First step is picturing the life that you want to create.
beautiful.
So I call it my pack system. Picture what you want to create because that's your compelling reason for change. It's the reason to get you up in the morning going, you know what? This is what I'm creating. End of story. Right? So you have to picture the new world. Second is accepting the reality that you created because like I said earlier, that creates the emotional space while also awakening your authenticity. It's like, who is that little girl and little boy inside of you that's still screaming to like, here I am, this is me in the world, whether it's big or small. I'm a complete extrovert, so mine's big, right? But some people, it doesn't have to be big, but it has to be authentic, going, what did you dream of when you were a little girl, little boy? Like, what was that authentic self? Like when I was talking earlier about when I first started my business, I showed up authentically in the world going, I had to remember who she was. Going, no fear, no nothing. I just knew I wasn't going to let somebody else control my life because I just got my freedom, get out of jail. I no longer live in the household of 14 people. And I went to college. I was like, yeah! I had my own bathroom. I was very excited. Right? It's like, go back to that. The third step is choosing to change. Like consciously making the choice going, I want to change. So like in my process as a financial planner, the way I physically get people to choose to change, a lot of financial planners they don't charge fees, but they just sell products. In my process, you're choosing when you write me a check for my time to coach you because that's your skin in the game. Like you're choosing, you're going, you know what? I'm going to choose. And then the last step is the only step most financial planners do is taking action. And it's putting the things in alignment, going, okay, how do I start to walk across that bridge from the life that I have today to the life that I picture? And what steps can I do today? And like with my clients, I wrote Awaken Your Wealth with stories and everything of how I've walked clients through things because most people don't think of going, picturing the life I want to create. I'm like, well, what do you want? And usually people start with like, I'll say materialistic things,
Okay.
right? Like they'll say, I want new golf clubs. I want this diamond ring. It always starts there, but then it always shifts to experiences and it always shifts to quality of life. And because we think those materialistic things are going to be what makes us happy, but in the end, you can have all the materialistic things in the world and that may not create sustainable happiness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm also thinking about everything that you're talking is in line with the idea of manifesting. And I believe that there is an energetic and an intentional quality and a mystical quality to manifesting. But I think the mundane aspect of what we are able to plan
Right.
and how we want to map it out and being in the present moment while we're planning and taking action, thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
action, and also being willing to adjust and take a look at things,
Exactly. Yep.
that is essential. And I like that what you're talking about blends those things, the gratitude with again, the willingness to get in the game rather than just hoping it works out for you or deciding that it can't.
Yep. Exactly. Totally agree.
That's great. We are in alignment.
We are. You know what? And I think the message I want people to hear is that remember it's okay for it to be an out of box solution. It's
Yeah,
not going to be like
I
we're
love it.
moving from a place of being linear, check the boxes, right? instead of like going, okay, like I always tell people, I'm like, I'm a soul coach in drag as a financial planner because it's the money medium that I come through to help people align with themselves. And they don't even know that they're not in alignment with themselves. But they know they've tried other things and it's not working. And what's not working is you're not being yourself. That's what's not working. And so when you can start to see going, where am I showing up in the world not truly in alignment with myself? Now, everyone will pull it up to their brain and evaluate it. Your body is way stronger than your mind. So, if something causes you to tighten or to get anxiety, it's not in alignment with yourself, your soulful self. Your brain is going to justify why it is the right thing, but be mindful of that body intelligence because it is way smarter than our minds. It's like you have to start with your heart and then add your smarts. One of my mentors taught me that.
I love
And
that.
when you can start to realize that your body is responding to your heart and your heart's desires, so when you're starting to picture the life you want to create, people will say to me, Julie, what is the smart financial decision to make? And here are my options. I go, which one makes you giggle more? And they're like, what? And I go, which one makes you giggle more? And like, this one, and then they go, but, and they'll tell me all the financial reasons why, because they want to be financially smart. But I'm going, we don't understand that when we follow our heart and we follow our giggle, more money actually comes to you. Because it's vibrational. Because you're happy, you're joyful, you're excited. So your frequency, your vibe is higher. So money is energy. So when you're at a higher vibration as opposed to being stressed out, struggling, frustrated, sad, your vibration's lower. You're going to attract less promotions, less pay raises, no bonuses when you hate your boss or you don't like going to the commute to work. You know, people would say to me going post-COVID, I found a huge quality of life post-COVID, being able to have 4 kids and divorced it and going, my client appointments are on Zoom now. People are like, well, I want to see you in person. I'm going, I'm sorry. Like, I'm done commuting to the office for now. Right? And then I even had one client going, well, can I drive near your house so we go to a place near your house? I'm like, well, thank you. That actually would work. It was me meeting them halfway.
I thought you were going to
Right?
be like, no.
No, I was like that because it was super important for her to meet in person. And I also had to honor what was true for me because I wanted to be present in my kids' lives. And that extra 2 hours a day of getting stuck in some traffic was not giving me that. It was stressing me out more. But I could let my fear trigger me going, what clients are going to leave? What ones are going to be pissed off? Like whatever story we want to tell ourselves. And the ones that wanted it more in person, you know what? They're actually seeing one of the other financial planners in my office. So they're going to go see him. And that's okay too. Maybe he's better, more equipped to handle them. Great. Like then everybody wins. Like why do we not think that everybody can win all the time? We can. We just have to choose it. And the only way you choose it is by being yourself. And knowing that you matter. Every ounce of you matters, even if it's really esoteric of what you know you desire. Who cares? Let your freak flag fly. That's what I always say.
Julie, so well said, all of it. Where can people find out best about how to work with you, how to find your books, and anything else you would like to let them know about?
Absolutely. JulieMurphy.com is where all my books and my courses and workshops are all at. You know, my wealth management firm is jmcwealth.com. So you can contact me at either one of those websites. And certainly there's lots of social media out there, you know, YouTube, you name it, Instagram, TikTok, it's all out there. And wherever it is that you're at financially, it's been my intention to have something that will help you no matter what your financial situation is today. That I know my soul's being called to help you whether you're super wealthy or super in debt, and I have everything in between. And because I wanted to make sure that, you know, I didn't grow up with money, so I didn't want to forget the people who I grew up around, right? It's important not to forget where you came from And I thought it was always important to build that structure too.
I love that. And thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure. I
Yeah,
really
you're
enjoyed
welcome.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. This has been another episode of Unpacking Possibility. If you enjoyed the episode, and I know you did, please remember to like, share, follow, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. And as always, until next time, be well.